Hey everybody, here's the second installment of Tips While Bouncing. As you can see, I'm bouncing and I have a while. Thanks Ozone 9 for slowing things down for me to do this. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. So my tip today is the infamous question: EQ before compression or after compression? What are my thoughts? What are my takes on EQ before or after compression? It's a big topic that a lot of people are really convicted one way or the other on. So I just want to give you my insights on the whole situation. My take is, in general, I prefer usually, and I'm sorry if you don't, I usually prefer to put my EQ before compression. And here's why. Not always, though. There's always exceptions. But for the most part, my EQ is before compression. And the reason why is, if your EQ is before your compression, then your compressor is responding to the tonal quality of your EQ'd track, right? So like, for instance, if I have vocals and I put a compressor first and then I put an EQ after, well, most likely I'm going to be rolling off a bunch of low end, tucking the low mids in, that sort of thing. And that's a lot of content that the compressor now is responding to, that you're then just cutting out afterwards. So, you're getting what I kind of call phantom compression. The compressor's compressing something that you're not even hearing, because right after the compressor, you're rolling that stuff out. So that compressor is doing more work on the track than it needs to, and you're hearing phantom compression. You're hearing the compressor respond to something that you're hearing the response of the compressor on audio that's not even there or being cut out. So in general, I find that the compressors work better and they're more efficient and they respond better if my EQ is before the compressor, where I'm cutting all those lows, tucking those low mids out first, then it's hitting the compressor. So now the compressor is just responding to the content you're actually hearing, and it'll do a much better job. Now, the cool thing about that is that's where you kind of start getting into, you're using the compressor to tonally shape the track, not just relying on EQ. Vocals is a great example again. If, and especially in pop, right? So like in pop, I roll low end out of vocals in pop like way extreme. We're talking like 300, 400 hertz and below are just lopped off. And I'm not like a subtle curve. It's like kind of brick wall-ish type roll off. It's real thin. And immediately it's going to sound like a radio or an AM radio. It's going to sound real thin. Kind of that 1K mid-rangey thing pokes out all of a sudden. So then I'll use my EQ and I'll start dipping out that 1K so it sounds a little airier, brighter, a little less AM radio. But then it can start to sound a little harsh. Well, having my compressor after and squashing it pretty good, the compressor actually is warming it back up without you adding low end back in. So it's, you're kind of relying on that compressor EQ relationship to help tone shape your track. Now, the exception to this rule, and a lot of times I do this anyway, is, okay, I have my EQ, I carved out whatever I need to, I've set my compressor up, it's squishing pretty good. Well, sometimes, and a lot of times, I usually put an EQ after that compressor again, and I consider this kind of like my fine-tune EQ, right? I'm not doing like heavy lifting EQ. I'm not carving, doing major cuts, anything like that. All I'm doing is just like fine-tuning, it's like, all right, now it's EQ'd, it's compressed. I feel like there's the compressor brought out a little bit of a 3K kind of harshness to it. So I might go to the last EQ and notch that out a little bit, or give it a little air if the compressor took out some of the air with all that compression. So that's generally my take. Now, there's always exceptions to this, right? It's not like a hard rule that I always follow no matter what. you have to think about the relationship of the EQ to the compressor and vice versa, the compression and then the EQ after, and it use that relationship to get the sound, the tone that you're looking for. So that's my take on EQ before or after compression. I think both are valid. I will say I probably use EQ before compression more than the latter. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, that's me. This is my computer bouncing still. Ozone 9 taking forever. Anyway, love y'all. Have a good one. Peace out.